Good morning and welcome to AP on Play. I'm your host, Anjali Prasad. I have with us today retired Judge Phyllis McMillen, who's going to walk us through her very illustrious career as a district court judge in Oakland County and a circuit court judge in Oakland County. And I'm personally very excited because I've been trying to get this guest for many months now, but I didn't have the right way of contacting her. And now that I have, I'm happy to host her. Judge, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
You have been on the bench for a very long time in District Court and Oakland County Circuit Court. So let's start with just telling my audience a bit about your background.
Okay. So I graduated from law school in 1977.
Okay.
At that, I mean, it was the 70s, right? So, I had gone to law school because I did feel politically active. And so my first job was with a public interest law firm doing civil rights litigation. I'm always grateful that I started my career in federal court because it's different.
It's so different.
It's so different than the state court. And, you don't ever go to court. You don't ever ask a judge for anything without attaching a brief. And the brief will be criticized up one side and down the other. And so it's just, it's just more staid and it's just a totally different experience. It also made me recognize how important the law was. Right. And so legal research is always something that I've enjoyed. So I did that for several years, and then I went into private practice, and it was a small firm that had a pretty large business clientele. This was a day when there was lots of feeder corporations for General Motors.
Oh,
and,
sure,
so
right.
You'd put it together, corporation, take it apart. But, if their kid got busted for selling Coke, you represented them. If they got divorced, you represented them. If they needed an estate plan. So we had a very general practice that included,
right.
Lots of personal injury cases, that sort of thing. And so I was a practicing lawyer for almost 18 years. And then a former partner of my firm had been a district court judge. I lived in Waterford. Our office was in Waterford, and it was at the Waterford District Court.
Okay.
When he retired, I decided to run for his position. And as you know, judges are elected in Michigan.
Yes.
And so
yes.
It was a cast of thousands running for an open seat.
Oh, wow.
I think there were 8 of us in the primary, and it came down to 2, and then I won the general election.
Wow.
And so I served at the district court for 15 years. And again, I've always been happy about the progression of my career. I think every judge who sits at a higher court ought to sit at the district court for at least some period of time.
Yeah.
You are really a part of the community. You really understand what the law can accomplish in terms of being, the forum that's provided for our citizens to resolve their disputes. Whether that's the government charging you with a crime or whether it's 2 parties who just can't agree on how to resolve their differences, that forum is there to do that for them. And when you're at the district court, when I was at the district court, we had a wild docket. I mean, it kind of pinned your ears back. You'd show up in the morning and you just fly through the cases, and so.
How many judges were on the district court when you were there?
So the district courts are an interesting combination of courts. Some district courts are just a city or a township. Some are a combination. So here, the 48th District Court in Bloomfield is a combination of several different communities. And the funding for the Michigan courts is ridiculous. It's this mishmash of funding. And so, those district courts are generally funded by a local funding unit, although there are some that are funded by the county because they were too rural to be able to have a form of government that could support a court. So I think that all told, I believe there are 11 district courts in Oakland County, 33 judges total, and each one has a different number of judges. So in Waterford we had 2, in Clarkston there's 2, in Bloomfield there's 3.
Bloomfield there's 3, although I've been told they're going to 2.
Yeah, and that fluctuates.
It does.
The legislature gets to decide the assignment. So initially in Michigan, we had the Circuit Court, which is the Court of General Jurisdiction, and the Supreme Court. And then, as the workload got to be a bit much for those divisions, the legislature created statutory courts, which are the district courts and the Court of Appeals as kind of intermediaries. And then they divided the caseload, so the district court and the circuit court being the trial courts. The caseload is divided between those two courts. On the criminal side, depending upon the severity of the crime, so felonies go to circuit, misdemeanors go to district. On the civil side, it's cases that are valued at $25,000 or less are in the district court, more in the circuit court. But the circuit court, because it is the constitutional court of general jurisdiction, is the only court that can, for example, grant injunctions or grant divorces or quiet title to property. There are certain things that only the circuit court can do. So I don't know. I don't remember what question you asked.
I don't know, but I actually like the background because, a layperson might not even know. Well, I'll use my son's in 12th grade, so he'll hear me talking about court, and he'll always, what's circuit court? What's district court? What court are we talking about? Do you mean federal court? So it's good to educate the audience on what we're talking about here.
And then from the circuit court on up, so if you don't agree with a decision made at the district court, you appeal it to circuit court.
Yes.
If you don't agree with a decision made by the circuit court, you appeal it to the Court of Appeals. And if you don't agree with that decision, you appeal it to the Supreme Court.
Right. So
and there are varying rights to appeal depending, again, upon the type of case and those sorts of things.
So when you were in district court, what did you call it, the Wild West?
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
Tell us, what kind of cases were you presiding over?
Well, all criminal cases start at the district court. So every crime that was committed in Waterford Township came across our bench. The distinction, if it was a misdemeanor case, we held on to it from the time the person was arraigned until they were sentenced.
Right.
If it was a felony, we held on to it up to the point of holding a hearing called a preliminary examination that determines that there's probable cause to believe that a crime was committed and that this person committed the crime. So it's really a mini trial.
Yes.
It's just a different standard of proof, because if you go to trial on a felony in circuit court, the standard of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. The jury or the judge would have to find that a person is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But for that preliminary exam, it's just probable cause, which is a lesser burden of proof. So we had a heavy
probably
exam docket. But we also, all traffic tickets are there too.
Oh, sure.
Small claims court and landlord-tenant court, and so that's.
Would you see the same residents coming in for various issues?
On the criminal side, absolutely.
Yes.
And
So
generationally, we saw the same families.
Oh, wow.
And, so yeah.
But that's part of the value of the district court, because you are in the community getting to know the people and the families.
Right. Yep.
So so you were in district court for
15 years.
Wow. And you have to run for re-election, correct?
You have to run for re-election.
Okay.
After I was initially elected, I never had any opposition. So I was re-elected without having to run a campaign. Which is great.
Yeah.
It's really, every time I have to go through a campaign, I can't believe that we elect judges. It's like, it just doesn't strike me as a good idea.
I know. Campaigning is, I'm running for Bloomfield Hills City Commission. Okay. So it's much smaller than, what you're used to. It's just Bloomfield Hills is, I think, about 2,500 voters, and it's only like 5 square miles. But campaigning's tiring.
And compromising, I think.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to personally ask for campaign contributions, but you can't run a campaign without the funding to do it.
Right.
And it's I think a fiction that you don't know who's contributed to your campaign.
Sure.
And so I just think it's a bad idea.
Yeah, I never understood the elected judiciary. It gets so complicated.
Yeah.
I know this was a long time ago, but did you go door knocking when you campaigned? Because that's I've been doing that with my son.
My mom and dad did. My
they
kids
did.
did. Yeah, the whole family, like went door to door. And interestingly, the first time I ran, it was against Rich Kuhn, who won the next election but lost that election.
Oh.
And he's about not quite 10 years younger than me, and a very energetic campaigner. And to this day, I tell him, like, you took 10 years off my life during that campaign. It was brutal. And he had three of the cutest little girls you've ever seen.
Okay, so we're in district court. I assume you're loving it, even though it's high volume.
It is high volume, and the other thing about the type of caseload and just kind of the way the docket runs is that when I first took the bench, I had done a couple criminal cases, but I really did not do a lot of criminal law.
Right.
And I can just remember, calling my partners after the first couple of days and said, "Oh my goodness, this is something else." And what happens when you're there in the community, seeing the same faces over and over again, at some point you're thinking, there's got to be a better mousetrap. This is ridiculous. It just, like, the criminal justice system is just this revolving door. And so what? So you put somebody in jail, they're coming out.
They're coming out.
And they're coming back to your community, so, what is the answer here? And it was just kind of a perfect storm. I think the chief of police had invited me to go to a community policing conference.
Oh.
And we have been doing a lot of work with the schools and trying to just get a better atmosphere, put a safety nets in place, and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So when I was there, I was looking for workshops to attend, and one of them was called Drug Court. Well, I'm thinking Drug Court in those days was in circuit court. They had designated a judge to hear all of the crack cocaine cases, like all the big volume, and so it was a life sentence at the time. If you had 650 grams of cocaine. So it was like, so I'm thinking, well, I'll see what that has to say. Well, it turned out to be a completely different animal. What it turned out to be is the beginnings of the therapeutic treatment courts, where instead of having a person come in and you sentencing them to jail or sentencing them to nothing, you actually put them on probation, so they're supervised and there's accountability there.
Right.
But you, order them into treatment so that you're addressing, the root causes of the crime. Because, as it turns out, there's been 100 years of research on what causes crime.
Yes.
The criminal justice system has incorporated very little of that research. But if you look at it, we know, the genesis of crime. We know what needs to be done to address the issues in that person's life, the criminogenic needs and risks, so that you can get them in a position of not committing any more crimes.
Sure.
Which is this huge win
for everybody.
Yes. For the defendant, for the community, for the courts, and so. And again, kind of the nice thing about the district court is that you're your own little fiefdom. Like at the circuit court, the probation agents are employed by the Department of Corrections. They're not court employees.
Oh, okay.
And so
wow.
So
yes.
It's a little different,
But in district court,
they're employees of the court.
Yes.
So my benchmate and I could say, we're going to start doing things this way.
Nice.
And we could just tell the probation officers, this is how we're going to start doing things.
Yeah.
And so we were able to just change the culture of the court. And the first thing that we tackled was impaired driving, because we had a massive impaired driving caseload.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I can't remember, there's something like 211 licensed liquor establishments in Waterford Township, and it's a 6-by-6 mile jurisdiction. I think that the county deputies, if they'd not been able to make an arrest, in the night, they just drive through Waterford. So it was a big problem, and
Yes.
that's a huge risk to the community.
It's terrible.
Fatalities and injuries from impaired driving are, they outpace murders in most cases.
Yeah.
In most jurisdictions. So we started doing that, and we dropped our recidivism rate, which is the reoffense, to like less than 10% from like 35 or 40% was our original recidivism rates, and we were able to reduce it dramatically. The state provided us with this great case management system that allows us to track our results, so we can verify that that's what we've done.
Yeah.
But when we saw that model in action and just how effective it was, we kind of started doing it for everything. So domestic violence was another big problem in the community.
Mm-hmm.
We started kind of doing the same thing. So there was, intense supervision, referral for, substance abuse, mental health disorders, and testing, monitoring to make sure that there was compliance with, orders for abstinence or whatever the case might have been. And again, batterer interventions programs. We have great ones here in Oakland County. So again, we were able to really impact the community in terms of what was going on. And then we even took it to again, this is the district court, right? And half the caseload is people driving on a suspended license. Well, why are you driving on a suspended license? Almost always it's because they owe fines and costs to various courts, and their license has been suspended as a result. So we had this great, kind of elderly volunteer probation officers who, when people would come in, they sat down with them and created budgets. It was as simple as that. They created budgets, and little by little, they would go and they'd pay off the 48th and the 47th,
That's amazing. That's community
court. And people then used to walk in, with their driver's license and just be so proud that they were legal drivers. So it's been, like I say, and just about every aspect, the case, in the small claims court, we contracted with Oakland Mediation Services to mediate small claims, because again, those are like neighbors, right? This is like,
Oakland Mediation Services. Tell the audience what that is. I've been trying to get somebody on my show.
So there are, and I don't remember all of this. I remember when it was created, but I believe that every jurisdiction or across the state there are. I'm sure they're grant funded, maybe they're publicly funded, but they train people to mediate. And then they also implement the mediations. So if you have a dispute, you can take it to Oakland Mediation, and they will assign a mediator whose job it is to try to resolve the dispute. And again, they are trained in conflict resolution and dispute resolution. It's
a very good service to have here.
As opposed to, and again, just like in the criminal justice system, where it seemed like every option was just to put somebody in jail. In the civil side, if you take the case to its ultimate end, which would be a trial and a decision by either a judge or a jury, somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. There isn't any compromise at that point. Like, a jury doesn't ever come back and say, well, I know he owes you, $100,000, but really, if you listen to what he said, I think you should. I mean,
it's all or
whatever.
Yeah.
The neighborhood disputes on boundary lines. It's kind of a win or lose situation. Whereas with mediation, at least there's an attempt to acknowledge that there's two sides to every story, most of the time.
Right.
And that maybe we can bring everybody to something that they agree with. And so they are not as embittered. They buy into the resolution. And it's a good resolution.
Yeah, it's a good way to resolve.
Yeah.
When you were sitting on the bench, we haven't gone to Oakland Circuit Court. It's the same, because I love hearing about district court. Did you ever not know what to do? Because sometimes I'm in front of you guys and I'm sitting there thinking, does she always know what to do, what to say?
there are a lot of times when decisions are easy because the law is clear. But the problem is, the way our system works is whatever the law is, this new and unusual set of facts has to be fit in, to that for a determination to be made. And it is a puzzle. It is a puzzle. And it's very difficult. And, I think the reason that I decided to run for judge is after 18 years of being a lawyer and groveling for decisions from judges, I said, I think I can make the decisions here. What I think I overlooked was the gravitas of those decisions and how it affects you. Maybe there are some judges who just are kind of like flipping a coin or not really. But it's difficult to make decisions. It's difficult. It's not difficult to make decisions. It's difficult to make a good decision. Really difficult. Yeah. And you have to remember that the justice system is self-correcting, right? So if I make a decision and you think I'm wrong, you're just taking it up.
Oh, sure, right, sure,
so you have the specter
yes.
of the Court of Appeals looking over your shoulder and examining this decision that you've made. And Judge Hilda Gage used to tell the most hilarious joke. As a judge, I think this is hilarious, right? But she says, there's three people out duck hunting. Mm-hmm. One is a trial judge, one is an appellate judge, and one is a law professor. And so this, bunch of birds flies overhead, and the law professor says, my shot, and he turns to his teaching assistant and said, look up the case of, this and that and this and that, and tell me the definition that, you think. And so, of course, by the time he makes his decision, the ducks are gone. Another bunch of birds fly over, and the appellate judge says, mine, and then again turns to his research clerks and says, could you please, brief, you gave me a brief on this issue, that, and by the time he gets done with his decision-making process, the birds are gone. Next bunch of birds fly over, the trial judge goes, boom, hope that's a duck. and that, in a lot of instances is true.
Yes.
Think about a trial. Now here, we've got the jury impaneled. We've got, everything is we're trying to get through this because the next case is going to be ready to go. And an objection is made on a piece of evidence. Well, I don't get to go run back in my office and look up the rules of evidence in the case law that's been decided.
Unlike federal court. Yeah, in federal court you would.
Boom, I hope it's a duck. So have I made bad decisions? I'm sure. I'm sure it's the nature of the game. But
it's quick paced, right?
It is. And the other thing is that, especially when I got to circuit court, obviously the stakes were a lot higher.
Right.
A lot higher. And so and I've handled some very, very political and dicey things, and yes. That have actually changed an interpretation of the law. I mean, that's a huge burden.
Yes.
A huge burden, and you always have in mind, the parties, or in a criminal case, the community, and it's a hard job.
Let's talk about the shift then from district court to circuit court. How did you make that jump? You were appointed, correct?
I was appointed, right.
Okay, yep. By who?
Jennifer Granholm.
Okay, so how did that happen? Does somebody just come and say, Judge, I want to appoint you to the Oakland County Circuit Court?
Well, I actually was recruited.
Okay.
by some people. We joke to this day that I don't owe them; they owe me for agreeing to do this. But and so and I mean it's actually the vetting process, I think, for appointments, at least when I went through it, both at the circuit, and I also went for a federal appointment at one point and had to go through that process. It's very in depth. You have to fill out it's like some ridiculously long questionnaire, going over your history. You had to list every lawyer that's appeared in front of you, all these things. It's very in-depth. You're assigned an investigator who, talks to everybody you've named and everybody who knows you.
It's
So yeah.
amazing anybody can survive that
Right,
process.
right, yeah, and there can pretty much be no skeletons in your closet, and
Wow.
and you have to presumably appear to know what you're doing.
So what year then did you get on the Oakland County Circuit Court?
2010.
Okay. And were you assigned to family or
No,
criminal?
I've always been on the general, the civil
Oh,
and
the
criminal
right,
bench,
okay.
so no family.
Okay.
I was never on the family bench.
And so how did that volume and that atmosphere compare to district court?
It was, like I say, it was probably less of a volume.
Okay.
But larger cases, far more intellectually challenging. Far more intellectually challenging. And so that, Wednesday morning motion call, that takes a long time to prep for it, the way I do it, because I read everything so that I know what the arguments are.
So let me ask you, for Wednesday morning motion call, I know what it looks like to a trial attorney. I know you can't speak for every judge, but when would you start prepping for a motion call?
Monday morning.
And you just
And you're
go
doing
through
it
everything?
Yeah, and the problem is you're doing it in between the trial that's going on, so, it's difficult, but it does, you just fit it into what your workload is to do. And yes, I read everything. It got to a point, like if it was a motion to compel, unless,
right, sometimes.
A lot of times those are just, because they never answered at all, not that there's objections to the, the information that was being requested, just,
Right.
So it is, and there's a learning curve.
Did you ever see, when you were in circuit court, did you ever see folks you got to know from district court?
Oh, sure.
Oh, you okay.
Yeah. Oh, you mean in the
like defendants?
Yes.
Who you might?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I did have people, criminal defendants that I'd had at the district court. Yeah.
Did they recognize you?
Oh, yes.
And you recognize them?
I can't go into Myers or any place. I always know when people say, "You look familiar." I'm like, yeah, I think I probably know how I know you.
Well, what did you like more as a judge, the civil or the criminal?
Boy, I think that's a toss-up depending upon the case, I think. But I think I enjoyed the criminal docket much more.
Okay.
I felt like I continue to do the work that I've been doing at the district court, at the circuit court level, so that, the therapeutic nature, the trying to actually get to the, the criminogenic risks and needs of the person and address that to try to improve the safety of the community.
And I think I can say this because I practice in Oakland County. I think you were most attorneys would say you were very thoughtful and successful in those goals. And I don't know that every judge sitting on the Oakland County Circuit Court bench had that same vision or has that same vision. So
I think that's true.
I thank you for your public service, and thank you for coming in today. I wish we could talk for another hour, but it looks like we're running out of time. So best of luck to you, and I hope you come back and talk to us again.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you so much, retired Judge Phyllis McMillen. It's just my great honor to have her here today. And viewers, thank you for joining us this morning.